Oh my gosh, I've been gone so long. I promise I did not forget about you. Though maybe you forgot about me in the meantime. I was enjoying some fantastic time with my family. It's been really great, but we're back on the road again, so we're back to doing the live show. Before we get started, please make sure to check it out. I post all the lives again on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can find that at Vince versus Everyone. That's Vince vs Everyone. If you hear something interesting, if you're learning about Virginia politics, please tell your friends. If they ask where you're getting all this information, you can tell them to look up Vince versus Everyone on any of those channels, even if they can't catch the live on TikTok. They can still leave a comment there and be part of the conversation. I am sure that I'll bring it up. I have a great thread that we'll be talking about later today. But to get started, I mean, the main theme, I've been obviously posting a lot less videos since I've been home, especially over the last week. We went on a nice vacation. But we're back. If you saw the video today or the last videos that I was posting around the end of July, we were mostly talking about the affordability promise. And we're seeing a lot of Democrats across the country running on the affordability promise. In fact, I mean, in many ways, Trump ran on the affordability promise in 2024. We all remember the price of eggs, the price of groceries, and all of the talk about, these consumer price index. And they're saying, oh, the prices aren't really going up. They're not really going up. That's what we were hearing from the Biden admin. And then meanwhile, Trump had ran on this platform that was pretty obvious to anybody who, has a regular job, maybe has a family, or even if you don't have a family. I mean, if you're a single person shortly out of college, then you're probably feeling the price increase much more than anyone, and no politician is ever going to gaslight you on affordability. You can't just pretend that affordability issues aren't happening. And you certainly can't just pretend that while there's no problem over here, but even if there is, you just need to bootstrap yourself. And, it's not as bad as everyone says, oh, yeah, your power bill, it hasn't even gone up that much. Meanwhile, you're looking at the bill and you're like, dude, I know that this is not what I was paying 3 years ago. I know this isn't what I was paying last summer. So you can't gaslight me and tell me it hasn't actually gone up that much. It's just a matter of fact, right? And you can feel it. You can feel it if you're a normal person. And our politicians, they're all very disconnected from this. And you're watching a lot of conservatives fall into the same trap, talking about this burrito debate. Well, just make your burritos at home. Why aren't you making your burritos at home? Why, after your 12-hour shift, why are you getting it delivered? You should swing by Chipotle on your way home if you must get Chipotle. And it's all just disconnected people that they're not really paying attention. And talking about Virginia specifically, about this energy issue, that's one you cannot get away from. Your power bill, there's no, you can't just use less power. Just use less power. Just turn off the lights. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll sit here in the heat and in the dark. I'll make sure that I'm sweating my tail off while I'm trying to go to bed. And, even in the middle of the day, while the sun's beaming down on your house or your apartment that may be still awaiting some more refurbishment, depending on where you're living. Stewart Court, shout out. But anyway, so yeah, you can't gaslight people, and you certainly can't tell them that they just need to put the heater. They just need to lay off the AC. That's not going to make anyone feel better. Governor Spanberger recently suggested, if you're feeling the pinch from your power bill, maybe you should install some solar panels on your roof or in your yard. This is a viable option for normal people. Just take out a $20,000 or $30,000 loan to outfit your roof with solar, and in the next 10 or 20 years, once those solar payments are paid off, you'll start to see your power bill be offset by those solar panels. So it's just an investment. You're just not getting creative enough. No, these solutions don't work, right? And Spanberger herself, she won on that affordability promise. She won by a wide margin, like 13 points, I think almost 15 points over Winsome Earl Sears. And it was all about affordability. Meanwhile, she came into office with billions of years, and it was all about affordability. Meanwhile, she came into office with billions of dollars in surplus from Youngkin's administration. I think it was like just over, maybe just under $2 billion of surplus from the time Youngkin spent in office. And then immediately, within 90 days, we're already talking about a debt bomb that she created because of this Paid Family Leave Act, which has been tried in Washington, it's been tried in other states, and it always goes insolvent because you just cannot functionally tax small businesses enough to cover it. Larger businesses, just cannot functionally tax small businesses enough to cover it. Larger businesses, they have family leave because they have a large enough employee base to cover it, and they're exempted from the tax if they already have some kind of paid family leave. So you're talking about very small operations, 2, 3, maybe 10 guys that are now going to be on the hook for these larger tax bills, and individual employees will also be subject to that income tax increase, the largest income tax increase in history in the state of Virginia. And she signed that within the first 100 days of coming into office. How's that for affordability? How about doubling the salary of the state legislature? She's added 51 new taxes just in the first 3 months. And then meanwhile, all of these taxes, all of these energy taxes that she's talking about on data centers, these large energy consumers, we're going to have a new tax rate on how they use and produce energy. There's many problems, but the two that really stick out: when these businesses generate their own power on site, they're still going to be taxed at exactly the same rate. So all that money that goes back to the state general fund, do you think that that's going to get issued out as like a stimulus check, like a power surcharge rebate to those customers? No, of course not. Even to the extent that it might in small portions be divvied out, I guarantee it's going to be income based. So regular people are not going to see it. Regular working people are not going to see those rebates. And then to make matters even worse, they're probably just going to take a huge cut off of it. It's going to go to some kind of focus group or some environmental study. We're trying to see how the water table was impacted in this area, so that's why we had to take 70% of the funds and then redistribute the 30% down to people who are already living in subsidized housing. Like you see how this is probably going to just fall off the rails immediately. And this doesn't even really get to the heart of the issue, right? Because we're right now we're just talking about what ifs, right? On the horizon, in the near term, the governor's promised to step in to oversee this, oversee and look at the impact potentials of NextEra and Domion joining forces. NextEra is offering an all-stock buyout of Domion for $67 billion, which means Domion executives and shareholders, they're going to get a fat payday out of this merger. So this will be very good for them. And in the meantime, there will be some energy credits offered back to Dominion customers, i.e. Virginians, like almost 3 million of us, right? So in the short term, we will see some immediate relief on our power bills, which have gone up by 37% since 2020. We'll get back specifically what's happened since 2020. Give me just a minute, I'll get to that. But no, they're going around. They're right now the governor's sponsoring this energy costs listening tour, right? So they're going to be going all over the state talking to Virginians to see what they think about NextEra Energy, a company that they've never directly interacted with unless they recently moved here from another state like Florida, right? So those are the only people that are going to have firsthand knowledge, is people that are for some reason fleeing Florida for Virginia right now. So, I mean, if that sounds like you, please leave a comment right now and let me know what you think, because I want to have a community listening tour about your interaction with NextEra. I've read some headlines, I've read some quotes, I've read some basic things, but I'm curious what like actual normal people on the internet say rather than just what's collected for a study that tends to start with a particular goal in mind, and they always find a way. They always find a way to get to their destination, right? So this is kind of unprecedented for the governor to step in on this directly. This kind of thing, the SCC, these other 3- and 4-letter organizations throughout the state that oversee these huge mergers like this, these are all underneath the blanket of the Virginia Attorney General, right? So this is exactly the kind of things that Jay Jones was supposedly elected to do. This is squarely in his wheelhouse. This is, the governor really doesn't need to be bothered with writing her own legislation. I mean, it happens, though. That's not totally uncommon, right? You don't need the attorney general showing up to lead the Virginia legislature on the legalities of their law, though it maybe would have been beneficial if more than once this year, except for Jay Jones has always been on the losing side of these issues every time his office winds up in front of the state Supreme Court. So why is the governor overstepping her own party's attorney general? It's because they do not trust Jay Jones to get this ball across the finish line. So what is that finish line, right? If you've lived in Virginia, especially in the Richmond area for a while, then you're probably already getting a very good sense of the relationship that Dominion Energy has with our state and city government. This is not a surprise. If you guys remember the days of LeVar Stoney, they're basically trying to give Dominion the entire Richmond Coliseum area and a subsidy for Dominion to re-beautify that area. So you're just going to give them the land and we're going to pay them to update it. This was an actual proposal from the Richmond mayor, and that wasn't even that long ago. What was that, like 8 years ago now? I mean, man, the time really flies since I was like living in the heart of downtown. It was crazy. And it's always something like this with Dominion. Every time you turn around, it is some politician trying to give just free land and free money to Dominion all the time. And so now, why is the governor getting involved? This is just speculation on my part. It's because there is a very cozy relationship between Democrat elites in our cities and in our state government and Dominion Energy. This has not been a particularly well-hidden secret for a very long time. So now, before NextEra can come in, we have to make sure that under new corporate governance, we have to make sure that this sort of patronage network isn't going to grind to a halt, so to speak, right? So right now, what is the purpose of this energy costs listening tour? Because if you haven't noticed, it doesn't matter if like 70 or 80% of voters are on one side of an issue. That is never, ever enough to actually get what you voted for. Never. And both parties are guilty of that to a huge extent. I mean, I could list them off, but you can put your own comments in here of exactly what I'm talking about. These 80% issues for voters that never materialize in legislation. They never materialize in political action. Political action by our elected representatives, I should say. No, this energy cost listening tour is for one thing and for one thing only. It is to see if the propaganda that they have been publishing throughout the state, it is to see if they can find people that are repeating that propaganda. That's it. That's the whole purpose. Anytime you hear a politician say that they're doing some kind of listening tour, it is because they've had their stories and talking points published in the media. They're doing it on social media. They're doing it in papers. They're doing it on these local news stations, and they're doing it on X. They are pumping this out here every chance they get. They want to know, are you reading the messages that we are sending? Exactly. Somehow we never get heard. The only time they hear a thank you, Cy Gopher, man, that what a good dude. I love when this guy comments. But No, when they say they want to do a listening tour, they need to see if their propaganda is working before they start taking the next step. If they can't find, because they're like I said, there's nobody fleeing Florida for Virginia right now. So they're not looking for people that have already interacted with NextEra as a customer. They are looking to see if the propaganda that they've put out about NextEra is working. So that way, when they say, well, listen, this is what we talked to 100 people, and they all said the thing that we wanted them to say. So we can't be blamed for the fallout if we block the merger. Oh, well, people, oh, well, what about the rate credits, short-term relief? People said they really, really needed the affordability. They just want to diffuse any of the blame to the voters. They say, well, they told us that if they could vote again today, this is what they want to see happen. And so it's really their fault. We delivered them what they wanted, good and hard. That's what's going to happen. No, so yeah, I'm very skeptical of the merger in a lot of ways. I just just kind of high level in favor. They're saying that they're going to do the short-term relief, that they're going to immediately drop rates. But if you look down, like what people are saying in Florida, like some of these rate increases from NextEra are like the highest in the country, supposedly. So I don't know that having this massive energy conglomerate is going to do anything. Part of it is because, like, if you look at look at the argument in favor, like the main one is that they have the greater scale and operational strength for load growth, right? Yeah, they want to drop the rate increases. But no. So the greater scale and operational strength, right? So they say that because if this will be Virginia and North Carolina, what is it? Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and let me see. I had them all written down of who exactly would be in. Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, right? So this is like a tri-state energy solution that they're trying to offer, right? They say that they'll have better credit ratings, so when they finance expanded infrastructure, they'll get better rates and all of this and blah, 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 right? The thing is, the greater scale that they're promising is directly impacted by the Virginia Clean Economy Act. So they're just saying that they're going to triple and quadruple down on what Dominion's already doing, which is more solar fields, more wind farms. I mean, I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble. I love the idea of renewable energy. Like, I really do. But the reality is it does not have the load capacity when you're adding data centers by the dozens. Like, they do not start up fast enough. They do not produce enough. And they are massively expensive investments. When you see your bill increase, it's not just that the price of fuel went up. It's not just that data centers are willing to pay more for the energy. Both of these things are true. But the big issue that you're seeing is that we are doing massive investment into new energy projects rather than increasing the efficiency of existing plants we already have. And efficiency doesn't just mean that they can produce more power per square foot of the facility. Efficiency can also mean that you're doing a better job regulating or controlling those emissions, cleaning those emissions before they are ejected. Look at the change in paper mills over the last 25 years. What's allowed to come out of the stack in the roof? If you look at the size of a paper mill, 60% of the footprint is them just trying to clean the air before it's ejected. And that's what's going on. A massive facility, only a small bit of it is actually used to make paper. Everything else is to make it bearable to live next to the paper mill. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true too. They're putting data centers, they're putting solar fields on top of what used to be farmland. Exactly. So then you're seeing the problem go twice. Thank you, Soquilly Farm. What? Soquilly Farm. Right, exactly. So you're immediately impacting the cost of the vegetables and fruit in your local market because you're reducing the supply that can be regionally distributed. And then on top of that, you're adding a very expensive solar field that if you were going to knock out that farmland, I mean, listen, nobody wants to live next to an LNG plant. I get it. Not a lot of people are really stoked on living next to a solar field, especially if it's like reflecting in your windows. But at least, I mean, a solar field is not providing power for 500,000 people. It's just not going to do that. I'm sorry. Like, somebody has to live next to the new power plant, whether it's a solar field or a wind farm or whatever the new power generation is, it's going next to somebody's house. Unless we convert all of that to like a college and then put it next to a college. And then nobody will go to that college, but that's okay because our state sinks a ton of money into colleges anyway. No, so somebody has to live next to it. So I understand you don't want a liquid natural gas plant in your neighborhood. Neither do I. Nobody does. That's what NIMBYism is all about. But you're not going to see that grid strain relief from a solar field. You're just not. Solar over roadways, which would be great because then you're driving in the shade. I love this idea because I hate when I leave for work in the morning, the sun's coming up in my eyes, and then I come home and it's going down in my eyes. Just put the solar over the roadways and the sun can be beaming on that and I can drive in the shade. It sounds really nice, especially that hot summer months when your AC starts to fail. Parking lots, there's all kinds of cities. People complain about walking down, it's so hot walking down the sidewalk, waiting for the bus. We could have canopies over these roadways. And I don't think most people would complain. It'd kind of be dope. It'd be like the cyberpunk future. When I say that, like, I like the idea of solar, I'm not just fooling around. Like, there are ways that this can be done, and we just continually do this in like the worst ways we can imagine. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Yeah, in nuclear, I see I'm going back up because I missed some comments from Saigo for nuclear. There's an argument to be had there. Nuclear, apparently it's super efficient. Other forums suggest maybe it's not like the silver bullet people make it out to be. But I mean, I don't, that's not really I'm not a nuclear power expert. So, let's try it out. Let's see the result. The only downside I see to nuclear is like if your local power plant gets like some kind of Iranian spy attack and goes down, then like that really sucks because you're out of power. If that same kind of attack happens to a nuclear facility, then that's like a major national security issue, right? So, I have some reservations about nuclear, but at the same time, like we can also defend against cyber attacks. Like we can't be scared of everything. There are people that have degrees and work on national defense all the time that can explain that, maybe this isn't like the huge red flag that you want to make it out in your mind to be. I always proceed with caution. With change, I'm a proceed with caution guy. That's just me. But yeah. So anyway, sorry, I got myself a little derailed there. We have to see if the propaganda is working before the next step. So whether this is a change of course, whether they have to kind of seed some positive arguments for NextEra, whether they, whatever's happening, they need to make sure the propaganda is being repeated. So what I am saying is check out Wavy TV. Take a look at what they're saying on like local CBS. Look at guys like Tyler Englander. He's a pretty good reporter as far as I can tell, but he does work for a more establishment media company. You look at the things that they are saying. Look at these talking points because it actually does clue you into what happens next. I say this all the time. I talk to my dad about these things. My wife, she sometimes thinks I'm crazy, and then like 6 months later, she's like, well, wait a minute. Didn't you say something about this? And it's just because when you see that this listening tour is going on, what they are saying is we're about to tell you what is happening next. Yeah, Lake Anna's great and could use another reactor. A lot of people, I thought people liked to vacation out at Lake Anna. I think we should put a reactor right next to it, just so that way people can see it really good and clear. Yeah, no, and Yeah, exactly. I remember it was 2008. Wired released. It was the last cool issue of Wired before they got bought by Engadget. It was an orange cover. Yeah, it happens sometimes. I never. These are seeds that get planted. I never push the issue. I never push the issue. When me and my wife are talking about things, I try to be very passive. But then that you just give it time. I don't really. The thing about being right is that you don't always need people to agree with you right now, and you don't have to hurt any feelings. You can just wait around, and if you are indeed correct, the nice thing about the truth is it's ultimately unavoidable. So you get to see it, and that's way more fulfilling than you and your wife going to bed upset because you argued about politics in Richmond. Ugh. So my wife is thank God I married a very normal person. If I married somebody who was like me with politics, me and that person would drive each other insane. We just we would never get a chance to settle down. I've lived on Progress Energy territory. They love rolling blackouts and rate increases. Yeah, I hear a lot of reports. There's a lot of guys, people like me on X, on TikTok. I follow these people. I'm in group chats with them, and a lot of them are saying that they're already seeing these. They're already seeing these rolling brownouts. Middle of the day in a downtown area, no wind, no thunderstorm. Why are the lights flickering? What's going on? I don't know. There's something weird going on, right? And all of this, just to get back to the main point, this what was his name? Joseph Almond, the chief energy secretary, first of his kind cabinet level position for Abigail Spanberger. He's specifically focused on the green energy future for Virginia, the affordability promise when it comes to energy. These are the two things in his wheelhouse: is delivering on affordability and sticking with the Virginia Clean Economy Act guidelines. This is what he's here to do. He declared total surrender on the affordability part of his job. He says expect rate increases for 20 years. I swear, this man must be a Republican, because if you win on affordability and then right before a midterm, you're like, oh, by the way, we gave up on the affordability part. It will be more expensive, but there will be less carbon emissions. And from my perspective, this is just a losing move. This will be fine with like old school Democrats, like Al Gore Democrats are going to be like, well, it's we got to stop global warming. If you haven't noticed, Democrats haven't talked about climate change in like 3 years. So I don't know. Maybe he's a little out of step, and he's just trying to signal to old school Democrats that the clean energy future is a bigger focus for the state right now. I don't know. But no, so I get into this argument on Facebook, right? Because we have this story about Virginia Beach City Councilman, now State Senator Bill DeSteph, right? He definitely had this sort of inside-outside deal with Dominion. He got this property for cheap. He got a huge subsidy to, make it usable again, and then immediately starts leasing it to Dominion just in time for them to secure this wind farm project off the coast, right? So he's leasing this property as a staging ground. He got the property for a very low cost compared to what he's leasing it for now. This is a massive payday for Bill DeSteph, a Republican, by the way. My understanding, a Republican. Maybe, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Tell me if I'm wrong. But I hear about this story all the time. Every single time I make a video about Dominion Energy, about Abigail Spanberger not delivering on affordability promises, immediately we go back to this Bill DeSteph. This whole corruption scandal started in 2011. It's a Republican at the heart of it. Your rate increases are not due to political corruption. I mean, at least not in large part. Maybe in small part. I don't know. I mean, like I said, Dominion, it seems like they do have a pretty cozy relationship with the state government and the city governments. But I don't think it's just pure political corruption, right? I'm sure there's a bit of that, right? But Yeah, exactly. You follow the money, right? You follow the money. You look at what's going on. This Bill to Steph guy, I mean, yeah, Dominion gives money to politicians on both sides. It's not an exclusively Democrat thing. However, I point this out because people bring this up, or they bring up RGGI. Even a lot of Republicans, they bring up the RGGI. Oh, that's $15 right on top of your bill. It's true. Both of these, it's corruption is bad, and in some ways contributes to cost, at least in a roundabout factor. And then RGGI directly adds that extra tax to Dominion, which is passed onto your bill in the form of usually between $14 and $16. However, neither of these are the reasons that Joseph Allman cited for 20 years of increasing costs on your power bill. Not data centers either. In fact, in his statement, he even says if we shut down all the data centers today, if we shut them all down, we're still going to see rate increases for 20 years. And for that, it is because of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, because we actively are phasing out all of the fossil fuel plants, coal, all of the LNG, all of the oil burning plants, all of these energy production facilities, these old existing facilities must be phased out by 2045 completely. Virginia has to be 100% solar and wind by 2045. I'm sorry, like, I'm not a pro data center guy. I'm kind of ambivalent on coal. I used to be pretty ambivalent on data centers, but there seems to be a lot of shady stuff that actually kind of puts me onto the anti-data center camp. I tried to be open-minded. I understand that the minute that you suggest that this is a nuanced issue, everyone jumps down your throat. Because they're like, no, you need to be anti-data center. I'm like, guys, maybe we can make good policy, and then it's just knives out for me. Right. And I understand this is a hot button issue. Maybe strangers on the internet aren't the best way to convince anybody about data centers. Right. But there is a lot of shady stuff that makes me say, OK, actually, maybe we should pump the brakes because there's something fishy going on here. Right. There's something way fishy going on with the data centers. So I'm fine with pumping the brakes until we sort out that whatever that is. Right. But no, even if we shut down all the data centers, even if we go repeal RGGI, we're still going to see rate increases for 20 years because of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. Because it would make too much sense to invest in existing plants to make them cleaner and make them more efficient so that we can accommodate the extra people that we have in the state, because we want other businesses to grow, not just data centers. Everybody has to work somewhere. Okay, you don't want data centers, that's fine. What if we want a paper mill? Those use a whole lot of power and water. Okay, so what if we want to add more steel mills into Virginia? Okay, well, those use a whole ton of power. We have to, if we want the businesses so that people have somewhere to work, so that they can see their wages increase, so we have more materials and supplies to lower the overall cost, that power has to come from somewhere, and it's not going to be supplied by wind farms. It's just not, mathematically, it's not going to work, but they have locked it in. They say another 20 years, we're going to keep doing this. And as long as we keep doing this for 20 years, you will see your power bill continue to go up for 20 years. That is a complete surrender on affordability. In 20 years, I will probably be a grandpa. That is insane. Yeah, my grandkids will see a fulfillment of Abigail Spanberger's affordability promise. Do you understand how crazy that is? That is not a solution. Every single Republican running into the midterms, they need to get together with their policy planners, they need to get together with their messaging team, and they need to say the Virginia Clean Economy Act is an unrealistic solution. It is the only legislation of its kind in the country that proposes a 100% renewable energy solution in 20 years. That is It is impossible. It would not be unprecedented to back away from that. This only came into effect under Ralph Northam in 2020. So it's not like this has been around, like we're undoing 20 years of progress. That's the last Virginia governor. Abigail Spanberger's still in her first year. His last year, her first year, that's less than one business year of Democrat administration. It's kind of crazy that Youngkin couldn't get that pulled out in all of his time. So, solar farms. I had this pulled up in like a previous thing, trying to figure out the efficiency of the solar farms, but it's not just the efficiency, right? Because Pioelectric, honestly, my pronunciation on it's crap because I only read about this stuff and I never get to talk about it. It's something like 20 to 40%. I feel like that's in the ballpark. I want to say it was a little less, like it was like 18%, but it's not just that. It's also per square foot, and then it's also per dollar spent on it. So when you consider, like, if you built a solar farm for the same price as an LNG plant, like if you that price of investment versus the like kilowatt or megawatt hours produced, it's like it's crazy low. Don't even get me started on the batteries because they don't have the capacity for what they need with batteries. We don't have the technology. Some lady was talking to me online about, China has these salt batteries that they're using. They don't work. Oh, they're building their data centers underwater. No, they're not. The salt battery that they're talking about, the technology sucks. It doesn't work. It's not even a fraction as effective as what we do with lithium ion. Yeah, exactly. The battery thing is not working until we start getting the rare earth minerals domestically. You unleash the boring company on Arizona and New Mexico, and you get all of our cobalt and lithium domestically. It's just not going to work. And that's assuming that we don't improve the technology, which was my whole point with this lady who was going on about salt batteries, right? But no. So obviously, I hear this whole story from old Terry Dixon, right? Terry Dixon Manasalva. He's talking about this corruption story, and I point out to the guy, right? Like this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Don't get me wrong. You will not get me to defend political corruption. No, you won't get anyone to defend. We don't have to have a show called Versus Everyone about political corruption because everyone's already on the same side. Right? There's nobody versus everyone because everyone's against political corruption. Congrats, Terry. You nailed it. Okay, corruption, right? So here's the deal, right? This isn't why we're going to see rate increases. That's from Joseph Allman. That's from the Virginia Energy Secretary, right? It's not the data centers, and it's not even RGGI. It's the Virginia Clean Economy Act. That's why we have this affordability crisis. It's flat on its face, right? And of course, because I took this side of the argument, I get accused of being pro-coal and pro-data center, right? And it's like the weakest straw man in the world, right? It is the weakest straw man in the world. There's nothing in my video that suggests that I'm pro-coal and pro-data center. Nothing at all. Right, listen to the constituents. It's that simple. You can just listen to the constituents. But maybe don't do it on a listening tour after you've propagandized everybody. No. So, of course, this conversation with this guy immediately devolves. Oh, okay, so not solar, not coal, not wind. Well, what about emissions, dude? Hey, guess what? A byproduct of being human. Every single thing that we do. If you use the bathroom, you've produced some carbon, right? If you're producing trash, you probably fill up your trash can at least once every couple days, right? Okay, well, you're producing carbon as a byproduct that way. So our energy, the energy we consume when we turn on the lights or when we go on our smartphone and scroll Facebook for an hour, all of that energy, that also produces carbon. Everything about being human produces carbon. So why draw the line at energy production, right? When we say, oh, no, you can't produce any carbon when you do that. Okay, well, how about okay, so what? You're going to carry all your groceries in your hand? They can't be anything processed because that produces carbon. Hey, by the way, these plants that make the solar panels, the mills that make the aluminum for the turbines, like all of that produces carbon. There is no non-carbon solution. Like the non-carbon solution is the Ishmael thing, which if you're not familiar with that, it was a book about a talking gorilla that encourages humanity to self-check out for the sake of reducing carbon. That is the logical conclusion to the anti-carbon thing. I'm sorry. It's that simple. If you want my idea of the best short-term solution is LNG plants. The SEC created one exception to the VCEA. They will allow South Chesterfield to build out another LNG plant that's supposed to start this year. If they start on time, they might be able to start producing power by 2029, which means Spanberger won't even be in office to begin to deliver on that promise in a small region in Virginia. And guess what? The SEC has already said they need to pump the brakes and reinvestigate. The carbon they want to control is us. That is exactly right. They'll just strap a meter to your back, and you'll hear the ticker every time you sit down on the toilet. There's some more carbon. Nice work. You open the fridge, ding again. That's it. This won't stop until the RGGI bills go directly to you, not by secondary effects. So, no, it's that simple. If you want to talk about carbon emissions, everything we do produces carbon. There is no way to avoid it. You can't be. Humans are not carbon neutral creatures. We're just not. It's a fact. It's the fact of the matter. Deforestation was happening in third world countries. It was happening. Deforestation was already happening when we sailed ships to America. Whether it's the Vikings or Christopher Columbus, doesn't matter. They were already in the middle of that. You talk to the Portuguese about Brazil. There was a lot of that going on already. There's nothing you talk about. They were cutting carbon. They were cutting carbon right on the top of the pyramids and rolling its head down. But anyway, if you're a big fan of Apocalypto, that hopefully created a nice mental image for you. Yeah, exactly. 500 million people. That's what the Georgia Guidestone said. Right. The carbon levels drop when you get to 500 million people. So, no, and all of this to say, right, because I had to check, right, because this Virginia Clean Economy Act, if you look at the graph, right, as they shut down these plants, that you look at the timeline when they shut down these fossil fuel plants, coal plants and the oil burning plants, all of those I think got phased out in 2024. And now we have these LNG plants that aren't allowed to update. They aren't allowed to modernize unless it's just for emissions. So now they're just slowly phasing these out for the next 19 years. You can see, you can watch the power bills rise as you follow this graph. Obviously, there's confounding factors with new data centers and all kinds of stuff. But all right, well, hey, I appreciate you sticking around so long. So Keeley Farm, hopefully we'll catch you in another one of these. I really appreciate you sticking by to comment and really contributing to the conversation. But no, you can watch the graph. It's almost two lines laid on top of each other as they phase out these plants. And as much as a pro coal guy as I'm accused of being, you realize that right now, to subsidize our power, a huge contributing factor in the rate increases is because they are still using coal plants in West Virginia. Dominion still owns coal plants in West Virginia, and they are having to supply that power to our grid. So they are just charging us a premium for what we made. We made it illegal to use coal in the state, so now it is just over the border. It's cuckoo. It's literally wacky what is happening right now. And I guess, I don't know, you can't keep people's attention long enough to, Cy Gopher is here, so Keeley Farm is here. I don't know. At best, maybe in this conversation, I convinced you to be more open-minded about data centers. But to what end? Because I'm still like, hey, let's put a pause on that until we can figure out our energy policy and then how to regulate this industry generally. Because there are other concerns, not just about energy, but water, noise, all kinds of stuff. So maybe we pump the brakes, we figure it out, we strap a little nuke to the side of the data center so they can generate their own power, and then we say, hey, so you have to generate all the power you need plus 10% to the nearby cities, right? If you do that with the data center, with as much power as they supposedly consume, isn't an extra 10% just like all the power for the nearby city? Right, then you don't need to starve people for electricity. Then you don't have to tell people turn off the lights. You get like literally at that point, we're in like the Iron Man, like, cyberpunk future. Like we have to build the skyscrapers bigger because there are floating cars, just, there's so many of them. Who knows? Right, exactly. 15 minutes of power each hour. Yeah, everybody has to get the low standby supercharger 2.0 for their Android so they can charge it in the 15-minute time. You can turn on the AC. You can have the fan running for a little bit. Because this is where all this stuff is heading. It's putting us back into the Stone Age. And I don't know, not to get all like old school conspiracy theorist, whatever, but like, do you really think that this is going to apply to them? Because the capital city, Hunger Games reference, I guess. Like, this isn't, the 15 minutes of power is not going to apply to them, right? No, that's just going to be for us. That's going to be for the rural people. That's going to be for those small communities, like 1,000 to 5,000 people. They'll have the power restrictions. Oh, yeah, no. If you want really good AC, you have to go down to the government office, or you got to go to the school. You have to go to the propaganda machine place so that way you can get the comforts. If you want to go community pool, like, oh yeah, we'll add a community pool. You can't have a pool at home anymore, but you can have a community pool. In fact, you have to drain your pool at home if you already have one, because you can't have your pump running all day, and we can't have malaria outbreaks. So sorry, hopefully you like to skateboard. Then you'll still get to use the pool, but in a different way. No, so I don't know. Things aren't looking good. That's all I'm saying. And we are going to be on the lookout. Like I said, check out local news sources. Tyler Englander, Wavy TV, CBS, ABC, Fox. They all have local affiliates. And if you watch closely and you're able to remember things, you'll probably get a really good idea of what's going to happen next. So, anyway, I do have work tomorrow, so I think I'm going to call it a night, but I will be out here for, I don't know, at least a couple more nights, so I'll do this a couple more times this week. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Again, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you learned anything, if you're talking with somebody about Virginia politics and they say to you, man, how do you know all this stuff? Why are you so plugged in on Virginia politics? You tell them, check out Vince versus Everyone on TikTok. You can be part of the conversation too. You can join great guys like Cy Gopher or Sokili Farms. Every now and again, Esteemed Ham stops by. We got a lot of great folks. And if, honestly, these guys, they're always here for me. Some of you're not always here for me, but that's okay. You don't have to feel bad. If you do feel bad, you just go over to Facebook or YouTube or Rumble and you follow Vince versus Everyone. That's Vince vs. Everyone. And if you do that, I guess we'll call it even. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.